All right, so today I'm going to be going over the barbell bench press. Again, my client is going to be Braden. He's a pitcher over at St. Rose. So when we were setting up for the barbell bench press, the first thing that I'm looking for are the 5 points of contact. The 5 points of contact are going to be your feet are always going to be making contact with the ground. That is 1. 2, your butt is always going to be making contact with the bench. 3, your shoulders are always going to be making contact with the bench. 4, your head will always be on the bench as well. And 5, that 5th point is going to be that your hands are always making contact with the bar. Right? So get right into position. As you are setting up, I want you to have your eyes right underneath the barbell so your eyes are right in line with it. The reasoning for that is for the unrack. If you are too far back and you decide to unrack, as you are benching, you're going to have a much higher likelihood of you hitting the clips right over here. By starting with your eyes right underneath the barbell, we make sure that A, you'll be able to clear that, the clips easily, and B, you will not be hitting those as you're doing your repetitions for the bench press. Now, if you want to just bring that over just a little bit. For your hands, you are always going to have your thumbs wrapped around the bar. I never want what's called a false grip, where your thumbs are not wrapped around the bar. Just show that with your thumbs not wrapped around. That is an easy way, even though it's not very likely, for the bar to fall out. If that bar falls out of your hands, there's a chance that you could potentially die if that falls down and that hits your neck, and that is something we never want. Safety comes first with any kind of high or heavy compound movement. So your thumbs are always going to be around the bar. I'm going to want your hands in a position where, if you just quickly unrack it, bring it right down. You should be at about a 90-degree angle. This is a pretty good angle right here. You can bench right back up, and then you can re-rack it. The wider out your hands are, the more chest dominant this is going to be, and also your anterior delts. The closer in, so if you have a more acute angle, the more tricep dominant this movement's going to be. By keeping that neutral position, you can make sure that you are getting both good chest work, tricep work, and shoulder work, mostly anterior delt work. I didn't bring this up before, but as you are benching, again, those will be the 3 primary movers. Your stabilizers, if you are doing the bench correctly, are going to be literally almost every other muscle in your body. Your calves, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your core, your erectors, your lats, your traps, your rear delts, everything will act as stabilizers if you are in the correct position while you are benching. So, let's have Braden unrack this bar. He's going to unrack and bring it forward just a little bit so it's right on top of his chest. What I'm looking for in this position right here is that he's got his hands in a stacked position. He's got his wrists right underneath his hands and the bar's right in the meat of his hands. You can re-rack that real quick. A lot of times, and can you do this the poor way where you've got it towards the top of your hands and then unrack? A lot of the times people will start in this position right here where they don't have their wrists stacked right underneath their hands. You can re-rack that. That's not optimal for 2 reasons. 1, that's an easy way for you to leak energy out during the bench press. It's not an optimal pressing position. 2, it might not happen acutely, but after a period of time with benching, especially if you get stronger and stronger, that's going to start eventually causing wrist pain, which also can materialize itself in elbow pain as well. So we want to make sure that those wrists are stacked. 1, for safety, that is always the most important, and 2, for the optimality of the lift. You can unrack that bar again. On the way down, I'm looking for his feet, again, those 5 points of contact, driving through the ground, him staying tight throughout his entire body. The bar path isn't going to be straight down where the bar is going to go right by his nipple line. It's actually going to have just a little bit of an arc where it's going to come closer down to his sternum, which you can see during the bar path of the video. Give me 3 good reps. Come backwards just a little bit more on the way up. There we go, just like that. Press, rack it. So, on the eccentric portion, 1, I'm looking for, again, those stacked wrists, that barbell coming down, just a little bit of an arc. Him keeping his elbows tucked in and not flaring all the way out and up on the way down. That is also something that I really don't want to see. For the amortization phase, if he's not doing an isometric hold at the bottom, what I don't want to see, I don't want to see him bouncing off his chest as hard as he possibly can. Don't do a bounce, but just do a quick change of direction without a pause. So he's coming down right there. He's not slamming that barbell. You can re-rack it. He's not slamming that barbell down on his chest and letting it come right back up. He's controlling it down, quick pause, and then driving right through that concentric portion. On the concentric phase, what I am looking for is I'm looking for tension through his legs. The initial thing you should be doing before you're pressing with your arms is really driving through either your heels or your toes, whatever you're making contact with the ground. That is your the first thing you should be thinking about when you are benching, is driving through that lower body and then transferring that force up into the press itself. Give me another 3 reps. Really focus on driving through the floor. You want to make sure that, again, you're squeezing your quads, you're squeezing your glutes, you're squeezing your core, keeping your erectors tight. Your shoulders are flat on the bench. A big cue that I like to think of when we're doing the concentric portion is not just pushing it straight up, but actually pushing yourself away from the bar. That's going to keep your shoulders in a great position. One of the things that most likely occurs if people are having shoulder issues when they are benching is mostly because they're not keeping their shoulders pinned back in the bench press and they're allowing the shoulders to come forward as they're in that concentric phase. We don't want that. We want you to keep your shoulders nice and pinned into that bench. Show me another 3 reps. So I want us to focus on these shoulders right here. Think about driving away from that barbell. He's keeping his shoulders on the bench. He's not allowing them to pop up on the way up. Keeping tension throughout his entire body. His wrists are stacked. He's in a great position with the barbell itself. You can get right up. So that is the barbell bench press. Now there are a couple other variations depending on what you were going for that we can do. Now, the bench is the main bro movement, right? Everybody wants to know what you bench if they're talking about lifting. So obviously, we want to be able to bench pretty heavy regardless of who you are, because it's a pretty nice thing to do. It's nice to be able to tell somebody you bench a lot. So if our goal is to have the heaviest bench possible, different variations that you can do are, if you end up kind of slowing down or failure is towards the bottom of that bench press, well, that means your chest is the weaker portion. So doing a wider grip bench press, as I mentioned before, is going to be a great way to really work on that area and help you progress through the bench press. Inversely, if you can easily get out of that bottom position, but towards the top, that's really where you start to fatigue, you start to lose that velocity, or you straight up fail, well, that means your triceps are the limiting factor of your bench press, and doing things like close grip, floor presses, using a pad like this, and doing some sort of board press, those are all going to be different variations that can help your triceps if those are the lagging muscles for the bench press. Finally, I want to go over some fallacies with the bench press. While I'm not really going to force an arch with a bunch of athletes, if you are going for optimality, using an arch for the bench press is completely fine. A lot of people think that it's not fine and that it's unsafe, and those people are generally children with fragile egos that probably saw somebody smaller or weaker than them benching more than them. Arching is completely fine, and it is something that is safe to do as well. When you're arching, it actually helps to keep your shoulders pinned back into that bench and keep your shoulders in a healthier position. By arching, what you're doing is you're driving those shoulders into the bench, and it allows you to keep a little bit more tension throughout your entire body right here. As long as you are keeping your butt on the bench and not allowing that butt to lift up, there is not going to be any extra pressure, any extra force, anything that's going to happen to your back, anything like that. If, and I'm trying not to say now 100 times in this video, if you were going for hypertrophy, a huge arch might not be the best goal for that. But if you're going for strength or really any other reason and you want to have that arch, there's nothing wrong with arching with your back. It is completely safe. It's a great way to do a great way to have an optimal bench press, especially if you've got problems keeping your shoulders pinned right onto that bench. Second, people that say going all the way down for a full range of motion is going to hurt your shoulders. Just like with the squat, as long as you were keeping your shoulders pinned into that bench, most likely the main reason why your shoulders or your elbows or you're having some other pain while you were benching is either due to poor technique, too much weight, so too much intensity, or too much volume. And I'm looking at you guys that bench 5 times a week and don't do any other rowing or anything else. You just go to the gym and you bench every single day. Not a great thing to do if you want to work on longevity and making sure that you're going to stay safe throughout the bench for the entirety of your lifting career.